Board of Aldermen meeting. For those of you who can, please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Alderman Mayor-elect Troy Smith.
Present.
Alderman Villier. Present. Alderman King.
Present.
Alderman Lancaster. Present. Alderman Wilson.
Present.
And Alderman Swatosh.
Present.
And Mayor Baird.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good. Very good. Item number 2, agenda amendments and the approval. Do we have any amendments to the agenda today?
There was some minor typographical concerns in there as far as reference to Mayor Baird that we've changed to Troy in there. I just want to point out that minor change. Then we'd also like to pull the appointment of the alderman off there. Looks like tradition currently is to have discussion/vote on some of these items. We've done some checking. That's not a necessary step, but just in the interest of transparency so the public knows there is an associated vote. Wanted to kind of remove that off so that anybody who wanted to be present could attend.
To the next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
shift it to the next one. And then just going forward, just to keep that clarity, we will remove the discussion/vote, I guess post-fix, if you call it, from future agenda items. If it's on the agenda, it should be assumed by the community that the discussion will ensue, and if the board so moves, there may also be a vote in that meeting. So just from here on in, keeps the business of the government going instead of having a discussion, and then maybe we come back 2 weeks later, remind ourselves where we were, and then have a vote. So it should hopefully help.
Excellent.
Moves things ahead a little bit.
Excellent. Very good.
Other than that, that is the only things. Oh, and there was an amendment to the minutes just to add David Keene as being present for the last meeting. It was reflected in the minutes.
Very good. Very good. With no other changes, I would ask for an approval of the agenda with the changes of name and the removal of item 7 and adding David Keene to the minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the minute, or the, just totally worded that wrong. As you stated.
What I said. Nice. Nice.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Mayor-elect Smith.
Yes.
Alderman Villier.
Yes.
Alderman King.
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster.
Yes.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
And Alderman Swatosh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Item number 3, mayor remarks. I guess I do have a couple of things to say. In the last 15 months, we've accomplished a brand new board. We're about to accomplish a brand new mayor, a new city attorney, a new city administrator, other positions of critical import. There have been a lot of changes. I am very hopeful that tonight closes the book on the past events that led up to me being mayor, that led up to some very stressful times for staff, for the board, for Mayor Snyder. I'm hoping this all gets put to bed tonight. We've got a new board, and despite the fact that 3 of those aldermen were here last fall, they were brand new in April, and they got dropped into a pot of boiling water. And they didn't even know that was going to happen. And they were forced to deal with situations that I have never seen a board have to deal with without any real prep time to to be ready. Last fall, I was the president of the board. And as such, it was my decision to move forward with an impeachment hearing. And I asked the aldermen to sign on to that. We did not know how it would result, but I felt it necessary to have it. So if you want, if anybody out there is concerned about what happened last year, look to me. Give your board the opportunity to serve as they have asked. There is no good old boy network. I'm the last one that's been here for more than a year and a half. And there's really not a good old boy network anyway. And I know at least half of the people on the Board of Aldermen would take issue with that term, and rightly so. You know, not too long ago, somebody asked me why on earth I ever decided to be on the board. And 14 years ago, a good friend of mine, Mindy Latham, she and I used to come to these meetings. Glad to see you here tonight. It's been a little while, hasn't it?
Thanks, Sam.
She and I decided to start attending these meetings representing the Chamber of Commerce because there was a huge disconnect between City Hall and local business. If they had a relationship, it was a bad one. Most of the time, it just didn't. And she and I decided if we started coming to these meetings, we could find out what was going on and why City Hall had this huge lack of connection with local business. So we came sitting just where you are, watching just what you're watching. Sometimes it was moderately interesting. Sometimes it wasn't. And after 5 years, even after she and I had left the board of directors of the chamber, we were still coming. And after 5 years, what I realized is the seats up here are so much more comfortable than they are down there. Now, actually, I was asked to replace an alderman that had moved away, and it was only an 8-month term, so no biggie. And here we are 9 years later. My wife suggested that I run for mayor last year. And, you know, it's really easy to come up with reasons or excuses to not do things you don't want to do. And mine was, gee, honey, we're so busy. I've got too many irons in the fire, and I just don't want to have to pull one of them out to take on the responsibility of mayor because it's more work than being an alderman. And I was glad I made that decision because just a few weeks later, she was diagnosed with cancer and our world blew up. And had I had decided to run, I would have had to have withdrawn. So, over the next few months, as she went through her surgery and radiation and chemotherapy, all I did in my free time was pull irons out of the fire and got rid of all the things we had been doing until I was left with alderman, being an alderman. And I just could have very easily pulled that one out of the fire. And I would have, but for 2 reasons. First off, you can blame my dad because growing up, he built into my brother and me a belief that you meet your commitments. Promise made is a debt unpaid is what Dad used to say. You'll have to forgive me. He was an English teacher, and that's a line from an old poem. Promise made is a debt unpaid. Agreeing to run for office and being elected, you are making a promise that you are going to serve the community to your best ability for the term you're elected. But I still could have quit. Nobody would have blamed me. And the reason I didn't was because as our life blew up before last year's election, every alderman on the board constantly reached out to me, supported us, lifted us up in any way they could to help us deal with our crisis. And I realized when I thought about resigning that I could not, in good conscience, take a group of people like that who supported me in my crisis and abandon them in theirs. And we were in crisis last year. And so I stayed. And through the summer and the fall, as my wife continued to get better, cancer went in remission and she got healthier. We got sicker here at City Hall every day until two and a half years of turmoil culminated in what we had in October. And Mayor Snyder quit, and the board asked me to be mayor. Now, my position on being mayor had not changed, but my excuses had. I had pulled all those irons out of the fire, hadn't replaced them. And Danny was in a really good position. She was getting really strong. We were able to travel, do the things we had been doing, and living as normal a life as we ever would again. We didn't know. It was good. And she suggested I take the appointment. And so I did. And I don't regret it. But I did make it clear to the board when I did do it that it was only for 5 months, right? So I'm seeing a trend there. And it would only be until the new mayor was elected. I was not planning on running again for mayor or alderman. I'm a huge believer in term limits, and that we don't have an ordinance that sets term limits. But I can enforce them personally for myself, and I think that's not a bad thing. When you sit up here, you vote, make a lot of votes, and help make a lot of decisions. And as you look back, you'll find that some of your decisions were bad ones, and some of the decisions were really good. Probably the best decision I've ever been involved in is hiring Donna Stewart as interim city administrator. She came in because the city needed her. She had better things to do. She set them to the side and stepped forward, and ended up doing so much more than we initially asked. It was fantastic. Because aside from the running of the city, which is what the city administrator does, which is why you need a city administrator. You've got to have somebody steering the ship. That's what the city administrator does. The board and the mayor can provide a destination and a direction. But without a city administrator, the ship has no one at the helm. You have to have somebody in that position. She stepped up, and aside from those regular duties of dealing with department heads, dealing with the day-to-day issues, meeting with all the SIMCOG, the OTO, all the groups that you have to meet with, she also was responsible for bringing a budget to the board. We usually start in late September. It was November, and we had yet to see a budget. I held so many special meetings between the budget and interviews. I thought every person up here would just stop showing up. And they did. They kept coming, even though it was beyond what they had originally been asked to do. We also had to find, her job was to find a permanent city administrator, find somebody to fill the position of planning and development director. The position had been vacant far too long. And our city attorney announced his retirement about that. So we had to find a new one of them. That turned out to be the easiest one. Louder Municipal Law, Holly Dodge and Nate Dolly, they are now our city attorney, our city prosecutor. Nate's got a huge wealth of experience. He can help us correct mistakes, hopefully before they happen, but certainly if they do happen. And better yet, he can help us, just as he did today, find best practice, which we should always be striving for. Mike Roosh, that poor guy started right after the beginning of the year. In less than 6 months, Mike has brought his department into the 21st century, something that should have been done 24 years ago. But he did it in less than 6 months. He and his assistant, Tammy Nephew, have taken their department paperless. He streamlined the process for developers, builders, anybody pulling a permit or requesting an inspection. He oversees enforcement of all the codes of zoning, building, and nuisance. And in his free time, he reviews those codes and regularly brings recommendations for updating outdated codes, for clarifying ambiguous codes, for striking out bad code, for creating new codes. He has brought so much of that to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who are responsible for the first review before it comes to the board. He's brought so much of that work forward that they now have to meet twice a month instead of once a month. Good on you, Mike. Our city administrator was a little harder to find. And we knew it would be, and that's why we hired a recruiting firm to do it. We weren't finding the people, even when we bothered to look, that could do the job. The recruiting firm, however, did it at no little expense. It cost the city $35,000 to find Wes Young. And I'm here to tell you, it's achieved at twice the price. Wes is the complete package. He's got the educational background, a master's degree in public administration. He's got the experience working at a variety of levels of state government. And he's got the chops to do this job because we hired him from a city where he was the city administrator. Donna Stewart had agreed to stay for a couple of weeks after Wes started. And after the first day of Wes's job, she came to me at the end of the day. She had spent all day with him. And she came to me and she said, Sam, he's got this. It's a waste of Willard's money to pay me to come in every day and sit around. He's got it. I'm a phone call away. Don't waste the money. That should tell you what kind of person our new city administrator is. He is the guy that is running the show. He steers the ship. It should also tell you the kind of person Donna Stewart is. She has buckets of integrity. Find somebody that will walk away from a job rather than sit around and get paid for doing nothing. And that was the second time she did it. The first time she walked away from the job that she wasn't being allowed to do rather than get paid for not doing it. This city owes Donna Stewart a debt of gratitude that we'll never repay. And she made personal sacrifices to do that job that most of us will never truly appreciate. But if you want to thank her, and you should, you can always find her down at the farmer's market. We wouldn't even have a farmer's market but for the efforts of Donna Stewart. So I'll thank her right now. Farmer's market, every Friday through September, from 4 in the evening until 7, down in front of the mural building on Jackson Street. The best things you could give her would be go support those vendors, see what they've got. There's some good produce down there, some good baked goods, a lot of other cool stuff to go check out, and hopefully spend a little money. When Donna and I first sat down, she was the new interim city administrator, and I was the new interim mayor. We realized almost immediately we had two core goals that we wanted to achieve for Whitman. And the first was transparency. As she put it, transparency is the word of the day, every day. So we rooted out any past policies that restricted the flow of information to the public. We tried to create some new systems so that the board decision-making policy would even be more transparent than it had been. She directed staff to create a Facebook page so we could do official announcements, notifications of upcoming events, notifications of broken water lines, what the updates on those was and when the repair was made, and certainly a place to post the videos that we now have a Board of Aldermen meetings. She's the one that found the meeting out camera. That's a pretty cool piece of equipment. It takes a 360-degree recording. Smile, you're on camera. And then it also focuses on whoever is talking or making the most noise. So if while I'm talking to you, you start snoring, it'll focus on you too. And then there will be you and me up there on that recording. And that'll be embarrassing for both of us. And that's the cost of transparency. Because no matter how good our intentions, we will make mistakes. We're just human. And so there will be moments of embarrassment and those moments that humble us, those, but the trade-off is so worth it because with the transparency, brighter light shines through, and that light shines the brightest on those who have the most to hide. That's why the moments of embarrassment are worth it. I'm firmly convinced if 3 years ago we had the transparency that we do today, I would never be mayor. I wouldn't have had it. The second thing that Don and I firmly believed on was that there should be a constant desire to improve our customer service. And it's not that we believe Willard provides bad customer service, but that's what government really does, is provide customer service. Our citizens are our customers. The people who visit are our customers. And as any business owner will tell you, if you're not striving to improve, sooner or later, and usually sooner, your skill set begins to decline. So we have to constantly improve. How do you instill that in an organization? It's actually easier, I think, than most people realize. Because attitude is a top-down effect. If the people at the top believe that customer service is important and that we should strive to improve it, then soon the people right below them take on that attitude, or they move on. They don't like being in that environment. And the people below them take on that attitude. Donna and I were responsible for initial interviews of 3 critical positions working here at Willard. You're aware of 2 of them, city administrator and planning and development director. And the third was the city clerk, Janice Gargis. During those initial interviews, part of our process was to assess how much importance the candidates put on customer service. There were a couple of really good candidates, well and truly qualified, that never made it past the first interview because they didn't put enough emphasis on customer service. We are positioned now, I think, with the right people, the right board, and the right mayor to take Willard into the future in a very positive fashion. But I'm going to ask you a favor, and it's the same favor I've asked of every board and committee that I've met with over the past few weeks. The favor is, help us. If you see a situation that needs improvement, let us know. If you see a problem, notify us. And when I say notify us, let me press the pause button for just a minute. I am not suggesting that you post something mean trying to tear somebody down in an effort to generate anger among the community. That is not helpful. In fact, it's counterproductive. What I am suggesting is that you reach out to your alderman or your mayor. You meet with your city administrator or the department head of the issue that you've observed. Find out what the facts are for that instance, because it may be the employee was handling it based on a policy and doing it the way he was told to do. And maybe it's the policy needs change, not the employee. Don't get angry until you find out all the facts. And if the person you're talking to, you don't feel can fix the problem to your satisfaction, then try coming to the Board of Aldermen and stepping up as citizen input. I tell you what, there's not a person up here that even if they don't like what they hear, if you're bringing an informed opinion, they want to hear it, they need to hear it. That is one of the best ways for us to move our community forward. So please do that. And if you do it very long, you may decide you want to serve on the park board, or the planning and zoning commission, or maybe run for office to sit in a more comfortable chair. It can be really rewarding. It has been for me. I've had some really good experiences up here. I've made friends with virtually everybody I've worked with up here, and a few of them very close personal friendships. And I lost a friend over this as well. And last October was absolutely my worst experience in 9 years of serving. And actually, one of the worst experiences of my life. I hated every minute. Nobody liked it. That was not where we wanted to be. So, I'll tell you, it can be very rewarding, but I assure you, it has not always been a pleasure. But it always will be a privilege. Item number 4, swearing in Mayor-elect Troy Smith. Alderman Smith, if you would, please rise, approach the city clerk, take the oath of office. Get me out of here.
All right. Put your right hand raised. Repeat after me. I, Troy Smith,
I, Troy Smith,
do hereby swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do hereby swear and affirm that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Missouri,
and the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of the state
the provision of all laws of the state,
affecting cities of this class,
affecting cities of this class,
and the ordinances of the city,
and the ordinances of this city,
and faithfully demean myself while in office.
and faithfully demean myself while in office.
I will execute the duties of mayor to the best of my ability,
I will execute the duties of the mayor to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God. Now I'd like to request the other alderman, can I get a photo with you guys up front? I do. It's my first request today. 20 years from now, we'll look back.
I'll take some off again. Got it.
Thank you very much. You did stay. I was wondering if you were gonna, I was gonna take you out the door.
I'm not promising anything.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay. All right, item number 5, the consent agenda. Everybody had an opportunity to take a look at that. And let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Much better. Seem like this comfortable.
Yeah, bring that one down here.
All right.
Any questions, concerns on the consent agenda? Can we get a motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the adjustment David listed in the roll call. A second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Villier,
Yes.
Alderman King, Alderman Lancaster, Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Swatch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 6, current outstanding invoices. You guys take a minute, just take a look at those, and if you have any questions, Carolyn, though?
Make a motion that we approve the additional.
Is that for all of the invoices or just the additional?
Yeah, outstanding invoices.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Villier,
Yes.
Alderman King,
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster,
Yes.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Swatch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 7, I don't know if you guys got the explanation before by Wes about why we're holding off on that. If anybody, any of the aldermen have any questions about how we're changing the verbiage, I can explain it again to everybody if necessary, why we're holding off on this appointment, because there's some question about the verbiage about discussion/vote, whether or not that would be a sunshine law issue. Apparently it's not, but just in the interest of being overly cautious, we're going to hold off till next meeting before we do that. Okay. As far as the proclamation, Wes, do you want to say something about the proclamation?
Yeah, on the proclamation, if the wording and the verbiage meets with the board's approval, then we'll reach out to the ball team, invite them in to receive the proclamation, and of course, we'll change the date for a more appropriate date. But I want to just get the board's input before we invited everybody.
So at some point in the next week or so, if you guys all want to take a look at this, if you haven't already, and meet your approval, we'll let Wes know, and then hopefully we'll get the ball team in here next meeting and give them a proclamation.
And I'm gonna email Wes on that.
You sorry?
We're just gonna email Wes on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay, item number 9, citizens input. Anybody has anything they'd like to say? Give us your opinion, please step up and tell us your name, your address, and let us know what you're concerned about.
Yeah, Larry Whitman. I live at 5089. I just wanted to say thanks to the Parks Department for moving that playground equipment from Jackson to the Miller Farm Park, where the disc golf course is. Seems to have really increased traffic and usage of that area, and I think it's a great move, great way to repurpose that equipment. Also to Public Works for the job that they did, and to the board for allocating funds to add on to their building and put a new face on it. It looks so much better than on right there in the business district. To have a building that is not rusted out, or looks like it's about to rust out. And last but not least, to Mr. Baird for his service over the last 9 years. It's tremendous amount of time and effort that goes into serving, and I appreciate what he's done and what y'all are doing. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anybody, we'll move on.
Can I make a citizen input from my seat?
Sure.
I just would like to say, congratulations and thanks to Jason. Felt like I was in a Hallmark movie the other day. I brought my grandkids and just the outpour of the community and all that went into that. I know that everybody kind of, Jason, because I do question a lot of things on expense side. But again, it looks to be a great playground. And thanks for all the hard work that you and your team have put into that.
Thank you. There's a group of people that it would not have happened without the Better Together Playground group. If you have an opportunity to say thank you to any of them, they push the project in ways that I can only help for. So thank you for the compliment, and know that my gratitude, Jeremy said his wife was very involved in that, and I owe her a debt of gratitude she will probably never fully understand. So.
Okay, item number 10, fireworks sales, dates, and survey results.
I presented the board with a copy of the results that we had at the time the survey closed. Generally speaking, I think the survey results speak for themselves. There's strong support for the current sales and use to stay as they are. However, when you dig into the sales, at least, there seems to be some support for allowing a little bit more sale time. Most of the comments, the free-form comments, reflected a desire by the community to enforce the rules that we have on hand. It sounds like there's some feedback from those that responded that maybe the rules that we have on hand as far as using them after or before the allowable period is not being accurately enforced or enforced at all. Some comments suggested maybe we work on that before we start trying to expand out from there. So really the board, based on the survey results, has some options. You can leave everything as it is. You can modify part but not the other part, and then just encourage enforcement within the community. It was about almost 18% of the respondents suggested they would like to see more enforcement activity related to fireworks use.
I'll make a motion, if there's no discussion, that we leave the ordinance as it is with more enforcement from the chief. Is that possible, chief?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Is that a second here?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Alderman Billiard,
No.
Alderman King,
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster,
Yes.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Spottosh.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11, orders of destruction of court files closed in 2017 and 2018. Who's fielding this?
Gary, you want to speak on this one?
Sure. I'll stand up. It's just a matter of housekeeping.
These are records that we are required to keep for 3 years. We've got about 25 years worth of them. This is our first batch. And it has, if you look at the documents for both years, our presiding judge, Jerry Hermanson Jr., circuit court judge in Greene County, has signed off on them. We just need permission to start shredding, and this is the first of many that will be shredded. In fact, when we had our court review last year, that was one thing that came up. We're sitting on way too many files, and we don't have enough locked cabinets. So we're clearing out the ones in my office, and every few months we'll probably present some more for you. Does anybody have any questions?
Clarity for the meeting notes, this is just related to court documents, correct?
It is just court documents. These are the ones that we have permission to shred in 3 years. There are cases that we have to retain for 12 years, some of them for 50 years, and we are taking care of those. We are retaining those files. They've been sorted through 3 times, actually. We've gone through them 3 times and double checked them. I say we, I want to say Joe, my deputy court clerk, has. It's been a year-long project, and we've got about 7 years worth ready to go. This is our first 2 years.
Are there any items of evidence attached to these files?
Items of evidence?
Yes.
There are case numbers. That's all I'm required to have. Oh, you mean evidence? No, I do not get evidence.
Okay.
The court does not get the evidence. It's just what happened in court.
Okay.
So are we going to be just shredding the items older than 2017?
Yes, we will. We're just going to do some at a time. We're going to try to shred them with our monthly shredding, so we don't have to pay extra.
Okay.
But we're clearing out. We want to clear out cabinet space as well.
And it's kind of a formality, the judge reviews everything and approves it, but the board has to give that final blessing before it's.
It's just Willard's ordinance. I think a lot of cities don't even bring it to the board, from what I understand. Any questions?
I make a motion that we allow the destruction of the court files that the judge has signed off on.
Before we do that, can we do a blanket approval, or do we have to do this every time they want to file?
We'd have to go back and look what the ordinance says, or I believe the ordinance dictates
You're gonna
the
have to
procedure
approve
that requires it.
Every month?
Every batch that
Okay, I just, okay, sorry.
Which we
I
can
was
change
gonna-
the ordinance.
I was
but
gonna
you'd
say,
have
is
to
that
approve
something
each
that we
batch.
can
Do
look
we
at
need to
as?
maybe look at that ordinance then, so that we can,
Yes, I mean, if it's, I mean, if with the attorney's blessings, if it's standard procedure
right,
and a judge signs off on it, then why again do we just
why
have?
would we need to approve
ordinances on
this
the
every
books that-
We can just streamline it.
yeah.
I don't know why that's in your ordinance, I'd have to look. I mean, unless it's something that's particular for this class of city, but I've never seen that anywhere else, so normally it's the court's job to monitor themselves. I'll take a look at it though and get back to you.
I mean, I will second your motion, I just had that question.
Yeah, we can get that tweaked before the next batch.
Yeah, we can kind of look at doing that.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Alderman Hilliard,
Yes.
Alderman Keane, Alderman Lancaster,
Yes.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Swatosh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 12, Farm Road 94 expansion update.
Yes, so last month I brought to the board that APAC and Conco were willing to come forward and do some work on Farm Road 94 at their cost to improve some safety. They're going above and beyond city standards on the specs, the underlayment and the base and the asphalt itself. They're going to mill the whole road and then repave the whole road. The reason I'm bringing it back to the board is the the one thing that was brought up is we require a warranty bond on all work done within the city, whether it's a developer or anybody. So we brought that up to APAC and Conco, and they had no problem. If anything happens within that 24-month period, we can contact them directly. It's in the contract that states they will address that. So I just wanted to update that to the board before we release the project for them to move forward, that the staff is fully satisfied. It's been through legal and everything like that, and it should be a good addition to the city. Questions?
Thank you for researching that, Mike. I would make a motion that we're not even voting yet, we're just discussing it.
Yeah, there's no voting.
All right, item number 13, recommendation to approve Willard PD take-home vehicle policy. Hopefully you guys all had a chance to take a look at that. And Chief, is there anything you want to say before the discussion? I know we talked about it once before. But...
I mean, just briefly, not every officer at the police department would want a take-home car. I've got a couple that exclusively mentioned they don't, but to the younger ones, Daniel Kale, Stefan Collette, and the others, this is a very significant advantage or benefit to them. I mentioned to Danielle recently that this was coming up for not only discussion and a vote, and she mentioned that to her, of all the things that we were considering as far as advancing the police department's ability to recruit and retain, this is the most important. So there's that.
Chief, if you could refresh me, do we have a limitation as to how far out they live to allow it?
20-mile
Okay.
Limitation.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. I know I was talking with a officer in a different county that was telling me some of the limitations that they were even put on not being able to drive vehicles even while on duty beyond a certain mileage. And I'm like, what? So I just was curious as to.
The 20-mile limitation is pretty standard in the region.
So out of our current number of officers that we have, do we currently have enough vehicles for those that want to participate in the take-home?
No, we're a little short.
Okay.
How short is a little short?
Okay, so I have a brand new car on the lot that I believe it's last year's car. I'd have to double check. It came in late. We're not using that car. My plan was to rotate out the car that has the most mileage, car number 2. I think you'll see maybe on your monthly report that it's got about 70-some thousand miles on it. But I'm dialing that back because I'm waiting to see what you guys are going to do, because if you guys are going to approve this policy, what I'll do is I'll assign car 2, because that car with 70-some thousand miles would last probably 3 or 4 more years at least if it's assigned to one officer. And so I'll take that new car and upfit it and get it, it would be ready, within a couple of months. I believe we're looking into and considering the possibility of leasing a couple more vehicles. Is that right? We're looking at it as a possibility if this passes. Now, I've called Will Fisher en route and asked him to remind me of what it costs to set up a car. He said, well, you've been paid about $8,500 per car, but that's because you're transitioning a lot of your old gear into your new cars. He said, what you're talking about here is going to be up in the $10,000 range per car. And then we'll still have to buy a radio on top of that. But we buy refurbished radios from Sunny Communications. We've done that forever. decades, got great service out of those refurbished radios, so that would probably only be another $1,500 per car. So we talk about $1,100, $1,200 per car.
And then how many cars would we then be short?
I think we'd be right on the money.
If we would have enough cars for every
Yes.
participating officer.
Right, and, you know, one left on the lot, probably.
With our current inventory.
With our current fleet.
So really, we're just talking about the increased budget of equipping this new car because we're not carrying over equipment from an old car.
Right, there'd be a slight increase from 8,500 to 11 and some change. But if we fully implement this, department-wide, it would have to include those 2 new cars that we're looking at on the lease option and equipping them too.
So 2 additional cars, more than what you currently have in your fleet.
Right.
Is that as we fill positions or because
mean,
we're not
you know,
taking cars out of service?
Right. If it would fall, we have one position that I still fill. I have a young man on the hook, but haven't landed him yet. If the city decides to go forward with this, I think that we would be sufficiently provided for with those 2 cars. We'd have to lease 2 more cars and the new one that we already have on the lot. We could get started immediately as far as allowing officers to utilize those as take-home vehicles.
How many cars do we have total currently right now?
6.
Does that count the one that still needs to be equipped? The new one? Okay, so we have 7, but 1 needs to be done. I mean, for me personally, I would rather see if Wes can, I'm not opposed to the take car. I mean, I think it's a great program, and if that helps with retention, I'm all for it, but I don't want to open and vote not knowing the dollar figure.
Right.
Of what it's going to cost us to
Right
pay.
now, this can be implemented within what we have without adding. That's just an additional option to locate more cars. It hasn't been costed out at all, but with the seniority clause in there, chief has the ability to make assignments with the resources he has available for immediate implementation. It sounds like we would ideally want to get that new car up and running after it's not operable yet. It doesn't sound like you have an entire police force that's just jumping to get it, just 2 right now.
Right. So every word he says, or?
I am.
Okay. I didn't catch, were you asking me a question?
Yes, you've got just 2 officers that are interested right now. Is that what I'm hearing?
Probably 3, we would go by seniority.
Okay. I mean, it can be implemented with the resources that are available. Ideally, we'd have 2 more, but it's not a necessity to implement it as it is now.
My sense is that as the officers see action and application, you know, it kind of builds the morale, gets the, you know, police talking, morale's up. I just feel like it'd be a good move for us.
Again, I'm not opposed, if we have a total of 7 cars, we have 12 police officers, and 5 cars go home with somebody, we have 2 cars left to split between the others, right? So, I mean, I'm just, again, wanting a dollar figure of what it's gonna take to fully implement before I would be fully on board. Again, I'm not opposed, but I just wanna know what it's gonna cost.
Where does the Harley fall in this? Is it part of the take-home process?
No.
Oh, okay, just, I didn't know if it was.
It's just, you know,
I actually saw
Harley.
somebody using it during the day the other day, and I was excited to see it out for something other than a parade.
right. Yeah, we've, over the years, the helmets that are designed for communication have kind of taken a hit, and so we've got a new kit. We should be up and running on Sunday. We will be up and running whether we got the helmet kit or not. So, any other questions for me?
I think as far as dollar cost, just speaking to that, there is really no dollar cost. The policy is written to work within the resources we have available. It gives chief the authority to change that assignment at any time or revoke the assignment in full or in part at any time based on the needs of the department. So we don't, ideally we would add, but we don't need to add to make the policy work. We work within what we have.
I'm also assuming that it's going to require some budget adjustments to buy a bunch of new cars too.
Well, that's a further out.
Right now, we're working within the seniority as well because of the 3-year clause in it. There's, some of our officers haven't been here that long.
Yeah, as far as the discussion of future cars, I mean, that's a future budgetary discussion. It's in such an early stage. There's nothing to even present to the board. The discussions that Tom and I have had are this policy will need to be implemented within what we have. We're not going to implement a policy and then go buying a bunch of cars. That doesn't solve anything. It's just meant to be an incentive for the stuff that we have, with the equipment that we have, and I think they understand that. To Tom's point, I think just making steps that are enhancing the department will only help that retention further. But no, there's no reason to go hand buying cars. We've explored the idea of a lease. I don't even think we have quotes yet on this lease question, do we? So, I mean, as and when that becomes available, we'll present it. And most likely, my recommendation would be to consider it for a future budget, but not for this year. I don't think we need to do it this year.
So can we get a motion?
A motion to approve the policy as written.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Villiard,
Yes.
Alderman King,
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster,
Yes.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Swaltow.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 14, the ordinance amended to 2024 budget. We have on the slate tonight for the second read and a discussion.
Before Carolyn takes the stand, just as an overview of what we try to do here, over my former home, former state, there was a slightly more targeted way of handling budget amendments, which was to focus on the original budget item and the change, and the reason why. After we had some challenges with the first read on this, I challenged Carolyn to put that approach into practice. I've reached out to another community in Missouri. They agree that's the approach they use as well. So we've kind of hybridized this approach this go around because we've already started using the old way. So kind of moving us in the right direction, but future amendments, I think the target should be more like 30 minutes than an hour or so. So we're going to aim for getting it presented in a way that the board can wrap their head around within the changes rather than the entire budget. It's not a new budget process, so it really shouldn't take a lot of digging unless it's something of particular concern in there. So Carolyn will present kind of with that mindset in mind, and hopefully that will work out going forward. Thank you.
We will start with the first page. This is just a summary of the expenses for all the different accounts, and we'll get into them as we go to the next pages. It's a total difference of $1,064,000, and that's for all accounts. There's 469 in general, 333,000 in parks, or water and sewer, and 260 in parks. If you'll go to the next page, we'll go to the general. You'll notice in the very first line that the cash balance, that we started out the year higher than we thought we would. So that increased because of some of the projects that we didn't do last year that we was planning on doing and either didn't get finished or they didn't get started. And that is one of the reasons why the balance was higher. If you go to the receipts, the combination of receipts, there was an increase in development fees, permits. Police sold 3 vehicles, and there was less officers for the court revenue, less officers. There was a third of the less tickets, and that's because we had fewer officers. So the revenue was lower in court. The total difference between all the different departments is a 21,000 increase actually in revenue. That's what it's showing. That's the difference. Are there any questions on the receipts? And that was all the changes. As far as the next section, salaries, the majority of that, or a big portion of it, was increased in salaries for new employees, the city administrator position, the planning position, also on loggers, because it was increased, because we originally figured it for 9 months, and because we was able to get the paperwork together sooner than we thought we would, it actually went to 11 months. We was able to get it started in February versus further into the year. So that increased that. With the higher wages, also increased the higher payroll taxes. So that was the increase there. The total increase over all the departments was $79,000. Are there any questions? For services and supplies, it was a combination of inflation, increased cost across the board. We also had the additional of the special elections cost was one of the major costs. Recruitment for city administrator was one of the higher expenses. And in recruiting the city administrator, there was cost associated to that. The total expenditures for services and supplies, it was a $71,000 increase total. Are there any questions? Okay, on capital outlay, again, inflation hit us on the purchase of the computers. We did order or get just one printer versus several for the general fund. And then the setup for the payroll software was added in, which was $26,500. The total for all the capital outlay for the general fund was $76,000. There was a transfer to parks, and I'll get to that when we get to the parks department or fund. And there was an additional, it's $243,000 for transfer to parks. There was actually a decrease for the difference between the original budget and the new budget of $72,000 for everything. Any questions? Okay. If not, we will move on to water and sewer. water and sewer revenue, there was an increase in development, so the setting of water meters increased. There was a grant revenue increase, and I decreased the sales for the months that we did not have 10%. We lowered that. The total for receipts was actually a total decrease of $51,613.
Those receipts include the permits, or is that just
Right,
water?
this
Or,
increase of permits
So-
increased the total.
okay, so the permits are included in the total, and it's not just sales of water and sewer.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's also important to point out that the ongoing projection for revenues remain conservative despite the increase in payments, just to keep it on the safe side.
And there was an increase in grants too, as well. Okay, going on to salary and related expense. Again, it's the same as in general loggers, because it was executed earlier in the year. There was a higher cost there. Then there was some merit raises that were included, and that includes higher payroll taxes. So the overall increase, and also from the streets department, a person was moved to sewer, so that increased it. It wasn't overall city increase, it was just the person was changed to a different department. The total overall increase for salaries and related expenses was $82,879. For services and supplies, there was an increase for the rate study for Carl Brown. That was split between water and sewer. There was also an increase in equipment rental, that in order to do some of the jobs, it was equipment that the city did not have, and so that increased a little bit. There was also the citizen trash. We ended the citizen trash at the end of last year and no longer provided the services of billing. But because it is run a month behind, the expense of that trash for December is actually billed in January. So it had to be put in the January budget. So that was included as well, which was $23,000. The total increase for services and supplies was $76,000 total. There was some things went down, some things went up. The total was 76. Any questions? We go to the capital overlay. Part of the expense on the capital improvements was the public works buildings, which got started in 2023, but it didn't get finished in 2023. So the funds were not spent in 2023. Therefore, it was finished this year, or is being finished. And so we transferred basically the funds that were to be used in 23 to 2024 when the buildings were finished. So
non-finance language, that is essentially a kind of like a surplus on last year because we didn't spend an authorized amount, and then we're pulling it from reserve this year, even though, because we couldn't spend it last year. So it's not an increase in what you've already approved. It's just kind of a operational way of accessing it in the following year.
It's like I was talking before on the beginning balances, they are higher because we did not spend those funds last year. And that's why it was higher this year. Also, missions communication had to be upgraded. That was about $24,000 cost to the city. So, and the easement acquisition was taken out of the capital improvements and put in a separate account. So that reduced it by 20,000. But it wasn't reduced, it was just put in a different area. A saw was included because the saw they had for cutting pipe was inadequate. Let's see. We added 10,000 for additional water loss work because of the water loss that we have, trying to stop that. The total for all of the different items was a $174,000 increase for total capital improvements. And that's for water and sewer. 100,000 of that is for the public works bill. Are there any questions? Catherine? So the ending balance for water and sewer, it actually an increase of $755,000. And again, that goes back to the beginning, part of it, the beginning balance of what we started out with on January 1. Plus, we've had planning, additional meter installs that raised it up considerably too. So it actually increased for water and sewer. Any questions? Okay, if not, we'll go to parks. Okay, park revenue. Increased. And then we also had to add transfers, and this goes back to when I was talking earlier about the general fund, funds that were transferred to the Parks Department. It increased $242,000. And I'll get into part of the reason why the increase here when we get down into the expenses. Salaries increased $13,000. And again, this goes back to the waters part of it, and part of it was some merit raises, which also increases payroll taxes. There was an increase, like I said, of $13,000 on that. Going to service and supplies, again, inflation and rising costs affected several different departments or areas, accounts. There was also an addition of the tree trimming, which was originally planned for 2023. Because of scheduling issues, we had to transfer it to 2024. There was resurfacing of the lobby and restroom floors, which was about $10,000. The program, the rec program, it increased. We ran into this on several of our software and or subscriptions. It actually increased $1,700 this year over last year. And then the payroll setup, and we run into this on all funds as well, the cost to get the machines. And we had to pay for both software companies until we get the new one installed. In fact, the old one will end as of January or July 1st. The total increase for all expenses was $45,400 for everything. There we go. Any questions? Okay, we'll go to capital. Improvements. On capital improvements, again, pricing increased, and we included the building for the parks, which was supposed to be a building last year. But again, because of trying to find some money to do the building on it, we transferred it to this year because it wasn't built last year. The moving of the playground equipment from Jackson to Miller, there was a $13,000 cost there. And then additional cost for the landscaping of the new playground equipment because of water issues that we had to have completed so they wouldn't have water standing on that. That was the major areas of increase. The total increase for capital outlay was $2,001 or $1,201. The actual cash balance at the ending was actually an increase, but again, that goes back to the transfer of $576. Are there any questions about that? If you go to the last page, the ending fund balance, the general actually decreased by $72,000. The water and sewer increased $755, and parks $576. A total increase of $683,000 in the fund balance between the two budgets. Are there any questions?
And just for clarity, these are, of course, projections for the most part. Some of them we know will be counted, some of them we don't. Hopefully things will come in under budget as the year goes through. This is best place prediction, including some of the existing expenses and projected outgoings, projected revenues and so forth. One of the things that I know this is in the ordinance to do it this early, but one of the things I prefer to do is maybe do these kind of things later in the year to when we can kind of be a bit more targeted with our projections and kind of know where we sit. I think there are other things that we could maybe look into more detail as we go forward. You know, what is this for? Why are we doing this? Is there a better choice? One thing I asked Carolyn, maybe check in with the auditors in Kansas. We had an approach of a budget extender. If revenues were up, your expenses were up, it became a wash, and life went on. You didn't necessarily need to amend the budget for that. But increasing a spending authority doesn't necessarily mean we're going to need to spend every dollar that's been authorized. And as an administrator, that's my role, to make sure we're asking those questions. Is it necessary even though it's authorized? So even though right now we're kind of in something of a rock and a hard place choice as far as the board, you can either authorize the additional spending or you can deny the additional spending. If you authorize it, we're making the hard choice of, do we want to spend this extra money or do we want to find another choice? The other choice is to deny it, and we run out of money potentially if the year isn't a good year, and then we start to have to make austerity cuts. So it's something of a procedural choice as opposed to an easy choice. So I want the board to kind of consider that. It's it's an authorization to spend, not necessarily a requirement to spend, but it does have choices ultimately. The budget gets tight.
I would like to, I mean, and I know you and I have kind of talked about it, and I really, the board's job is not to be in the weeds.
Right.
That's what we have city staff on staff for, is to do that. But it seems that whenever there is an increase in an expense, when we're flipping through the budget and what's been spent in a month, we're forced to ask the questions, and then it seems like there's some tension when we do. If just say we've made an approval of something for $150,000. If it's over budget, can we have a summary of, these are the over budget things that you have? I mean, you know, supplies went up, or, I mean, and supplies isn't a good case, just a building. If we said spend $100,000 on the public works building, and it comes in at $115,000, can we get something that says, hey, this is $15,000 over what you approved? And here's why. And again, it's not for us to be in the weeds, but when we question stuff, again, it seems to create tension.
Ask the question.
And sometimes, I don't remember, well, did we approve that, or how much did we approve last time, and where are we at? And so, again, I just feel like if we could be more informed as to what has changed, and again, not to be in the weeds.
Sure.
I don't need to know when the paper's more expensive.
It's a
But-
proactive rather than a reactive
Yeah.
approach.
But again, you know, I'm looking at all the numbers Friday night, and fireworks are going off. But I'm like, well, did we approve that, or was that part of this, or is that an extra? And I think if we were told when things are over what we had approved, and outside of my current position, I came from construction accounting, where I did cost accounting. Everything is charged to a job, and you know what a job costs, and you know if you're over budget. So maybe I'm expecting too much coming from that background of wanting to know, hey, we spent this much on gravel that we didn't plan on it. So for me, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but I just sometimes feel like asking questions, it creates tension, and I don't know what questions to ask, because I don't know if this is something we already approved, it's part of this, and I would just like for it to be transparent and where we can trust that we've been provided when it's over what we have approved.
Sure.
It could be something so simple as a spreadsheet with an explanation column that says, you know, then we obviously have to decide, you know, do we want an explanation on a raw number, or do we want an explanation on a portion of, so that Carolyn's not making notes when she goes 50 cent over, but if they'll, you know, total project is 100,000 and it goes over by X percentage, then we need an explanation on that spreadsheet of, okay, gravel cost X amount over, and just something that simple, yes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just being informed and not feeling like that you're having to drill in and try to refigure, did we approve this, is this over?
I think on a project
That's
basis,
something that's
we do.
going to save time in the long run, because if it's provided up front, then you don't have to go digging for it after the fact, and then provide another email with answers later, because, hey, it's already in there, and we're looking through it. When we get that packet on a Friday, and we're sitting there, and it says this dollar amount, and it said this was over by X amount, oh, okay, we get that, moving on. It's clarity to everybody who's looking through the paperwork.
So I can offer you one solution I'm already working on, I think I've alluded to, is the spreadsheet, but as part of online transparency, I'm trying to get this budget to where we can have it available to anybody at any time, just to have a look at. I think that will probably help. Once I get up to speed, most likely I will have it memorized in some weird filing cabinet I have in my brain. I like numbers. So you can most likely ask, and I'll be able to tell you how far in the weeds you want to go. But at this point, it's stuff that we're working on as we try to enhance our operations. I think there's great potential to do it better. I would like to explore the idea of doing a quarterly report that gets a bit more detailed and may also help with that. Back in my former home, I know you're not supposed to talk about your former home, but sometimes they do some good things too. We would have a quarterly report that we had to publish in the newspaper, and that enhanced that transparency because we had to explain it in a board meeting, and it was more of a conversational one-way thing, but then it went in the paper. Everybody got to see it reliably at a reliable time, so that then enhances your study so that you're ready for when that time comes. And then, when you amend a budget in November, which is usually when we did it, you're so rehearsed on what happened in that budget for the rest of the year that it became kind of second nature to do that stuff. But I don't think it should be a tense operation. I think it's an important duty. I think you guys ask the right questions. I think maybe going forward, I don't know how you handled it in the past. I'm speaking from a place of ignorance in this, but usually I think when there's a new expense being presented for consideration, first best question should be how are we paying for it, and then you've already thinking that moment acknowledged it at that time. Other things just unplanned. Inflation, we all know, is hitting everybody. There are other businesses that start charging more because inflation's hitting them too. So we plan for a $10,000 expense and now it's $18,000, or just pulling numbers out of the air. Those things can't be avoided, and sometimes it's better to budget the 10 because it's easier to find 5 than it is to suddenly have to find 15 because then you have a project you have part. So there is an element of crystal balling with the budget. I don't think you should ever look at it as a fixed document. It's a living document, and that's why we have these discussions. Again, it should never be a tense discussion. It's an important discussion. It's just as important as balancing your own budget. You have a discussion with your significant other or the kids, we're going to have to cut back. Kids, you have a discussion with somebody, even if it's the dog, you know what you're going to do. So it should be noted. And we'll definitely work on that.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we.
Wait, we need to read.
An ordinance to amend the 2024 budget.
Now I'll make a motion that we approve the amended budget for 2024.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Alderman Billiard? Yes. Alderman Keene?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Slattosh?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 15, an ordinance to amend Chapter 500 Building Code and Building Regulations of the Willard Code by adopting International Code Council 2018 codes as supplemented or amended and the 2017 NEC code as a supplemented or amended.
Mayor, you said that in one breath, that was amazing. So this is nothing new. This is the stuff I submitted last meeting, so you guys can get your eyes on it and everything like that. This first section is basically re-adopting the building codes. We are currently on the 2012 building codes. We want to go up to the 2018. 2018 are a nice, moderate code. Where things don't get too crazy, doesn't drive costs up too much. One thing that we did do on the ordinance is we're staying with the 2012 energy code just because we're not currently in a place to enforce that. It does drive costs really fast when you're requiring insulation and sealing of homes and different things like that. It increases costs. So we'll look at that in the future. But what we're proposing right now is just the 2018 building codes, the 2017 electric code to be approved by the city as our standard for building. Any questions? I won't feel too hurt if you have questions. So pretty standard stuff on this first one.
I can believe it. You did a tremendous job, and I don't think it's in this packet of all what if scenarios, so. What addition, I mean, do we look at this creating a greater financial burden on developers slash new homeowners, or are we kind of break even? I know that you adjusted a whole bunch of stuff, but just an overall, we're gonna break about even, or it's gonna cost $1 million more than
It's really hard to predict. It's really hard to project numbers because I don't know. My crystal ball is fuzzy, and I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go over that in item 19, and we'll spend a little bit more time on that. And what I didn't do before is I had an idea of, hey, this is what I'm going to present. I kind of took a step back because it's not my job to dictate what needs to happen. It's yours. So I took a step back, and now I'll present some options. And if you like those options, I mean, you can feel free to address those options. If you don't feel it's aggressive enough, I mean, you're the board of aldermen. You have the right to change anything you want.
You're the expert, it's your field.
But I will show you what by adopting the codes, what the fees could be, and then I can show you some proposals, and then we can have a discussion on it. It is my field. I don't claim to be an expert on the fee side of things, but I mean, that's something we can definitely have a good discussion on. So, sure.
All right, if there's no other questions, first read, Janice.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 500, Building Code and Building Regulations of the Willard Code by adopting the International Code Council 2018 codes as supplemented or amended, and the 2017 NEC code as supplemented or amended.
I make a motion that we accept the ordinance as read.
A second. Okay, the first and the second. Alderman Billiard? Yes. Alderman King?
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Slatosh.
Yes.
Okay, item number 16, ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances establishing an ordinance for regulation and establishing connection fees in the city of Willard.
Thank you, Mayor. So this next ordinance comes directly from Public Works. This is a fee that has never been collected. And what this is it's a connection fee, and it's addressed briefly in our code, stating that for a 3/4 inch service, which is your regular house service, that if the meter bed is installed, which the developer usually does, it's going to be a $650 connection fee for the meter and labor for the people to come out and install that for them. So that's the only fee that was ever established. There's no other fee established in regards to commercial, in regards to larger services or anything like that. So what this ordinance is proposing is we're going to keep that, our residential, the same as it's been the last 10 years. We're going to keep that at $750, and then we're going to, if they go up to 1 inch meter, it's going to be $650 for the 3/4, $750 for the 1 inch, and after that, we're talking with Public Works and in the best interest of Willard City. They want to go to a high flow, low flow for commercial. So if you have a 2-inch meter, you're going to have a meter that shows your high flow and a meter that shows your low flow, and you'll be billed accordingly to that. So that's the direction Public Works wanted to go. So the numbers reflect the cost of materials and what it would take to get somebody out there to install and inspect everything correctly.
And I'll add on that high flow, low flow, just a little technical side. When you got a bunch of water flowing really fast for a normal meter, it's not going to be accurate. When you got a little bit of water trickling through a big wide pipe, your meter's not going to be very accurate. So they have two sides to catch both potentialities in the meter to ensure an accurate bill. That way the city's not out of pocket for water it's provided and the consumer's not out of pocket or extra water that we think they need.
So this is within, I mean, good collaboration with Public Works on what they've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. And where we want to move to in the future. So, questions?
Janice, you want to give us a first read?
An ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances establishing an ordinance for regulation and establishing connection fees in the city of Willard, Missouri.
Motion to approve the ordinance is read.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderman Villiers?
Yes.
Alderman Keane?
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Swatash?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 17, ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances, establishing an ordinance for regulations and establishing facility and capacity fees in the city of Willard, Missouri.
Thank you, Mayor. So as directed by the Board of Aldermen, you authorized $10,000 for a capacity fee study through Alger Martin. They came through and gave us our studies based on sewer impact, water impact, and street impact fees, totaling about $6,850 an acre in approximate capacity fees. So what we had to do is, as a staff, we had to determine, do I charge a developer $7,000 an acre to come in and develop it in Willard? There's the fine balance of, hey, we need to recoup costs for capacity on our services, and where do I draw that line where I'm not driving developers to other cities because it is cheaper to develop. Because developers do come in, they put in streets, they put in sewer, they put in water, they put in infrastructure for the city. So what we decided to do, what we're proposing to do, I should say, is on the capacity fees. There's a table on the back that kind of shows what's proposed. So a facility fee, and I'll get into this a little bit more on 19. I'll define that more, but a facility fee is basically like your parks fee. Every building permit that is pulled will have a parks fee attached to it. And that's a facility fee to maintain parks, maintain community centers, pools, different things like that. That's what they call a facility fee. A capacity fee is when I, as a developer, comes in and I'm going to put 200 homes in. I have a direct impact on the capacity of that water system. So in this, it establishes some facility fees. It establishes a park facility fee, which we already had a $250 park facility fee. In this ordinance, we're proposing to raise that to $400 per home. Every home that goes in will have a $400 tag on it. We added a police facility fee. Every home that goes in increases the police's envelope of protection and service. It's only, that they should have some sort of fee there. Also, there's a technology fee. The building department has went out of their way to go paperless, allowing people to submit online, pay online, request inspections online, different things like that, but that comes with an added cost. So we're trying to recoup some of that money through a facility fee, a technology fee on permits pulled. So, but what was decided on the capacity fees is water capacity came back in at $2,000 per home, was what the Cochrane study addressed. It was the only one that came back on a per home basis. It didn't come back on a per acre. So what we are proposing on staff is to put that on a per home basis, which means shifting it from the development side to the building permit side, because every building permit pulled is on a per home basis. So we're going to shift that fee to the building side, and I'll show you how that ties in here shortly. The sewer was also $2,000 an acre, but with the developer putting in the infrastructure and different things like that, we didn't want to drive them, too far. So we cut that in half, proposing for a 3/4 inch water meter that it would be $1,000 capacity fee. And then the street impact is where it gets tricky. The developer's coming in and putting in 200 homes, but he's also putting in streets. But that development's also going to have a direct impact on the development surrounding it. Our arterials and our major highways and everything are going to get more crowded because that development's in there. And they were talking about a $2,850 per acre capacity fee for streets. So what was decided for what is proposed? We had storm drain capacity on there also, but they did not have a conclusive way of determining what that fee should be. So currently we've held off charging any fee for stormwater, but that can be revisited at a later time when we have a little bit more information. So what the proposal is for capacity fees, instead of the $68.50 that is proposed by Cochran Engineering, we're proposing that the developer on the development side will pay $28.50 per acre, a development fee, and that will have to be paid before final plat is approved. And what that does, if you break it down with our current zoning is 15,000 square feet per acre. That's about $950 per home additional. If they go with the mixed use, it's about $475 increase over what we're currently doing. So that's the capacity fees, the facility fees in a nutshell. I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but I will answer any questions to the best of my ability.
So would this put us more in line? And I've said this many times before, so I shouldn't keep asking the question because I don't care so much what other jurisdictions are doing, but does this put us pretty much in line with what Republic's doing, Nixon's doing, Stratford, as far as our fees to the developer and builder?
Currently, I would have to say no.
Are we above or are we below?
Because currently the other jurisdictions do not currently attach a fee for the developer. So what the developer is going to do, and this is what's going to happen, is he's going to come in and he's going to say, hey, this is costing me $2,800 more an acre. He's going to pass $2,800 to the property. So instead of paying $50,000 for your lot, they're going to pay $52,000 for their lot, or less than that because it's going to be split off in acreage. So that's what's going to happen. But what that does for the city is the city's able to recoup immediately. Immediately when that subdivision goes in, we're able to recoup now and move forward. So I don't see this being a problem for development at all. I think what we could have charged versus what we're proposing, I think I think we're in a good place. And I'll go over the building fees and everything like that, the options with the facility fees in there. You'll see what we were charging for old permits, and then you'll see a couple options, and we can go over that. But short answer, Mayor, I think we're going to be in a good place.
Okay. If there's no other questions, yes, Commander Reed.
An ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances, establishing an ordinance for regulation and establishing facility and capacity fees in the city of Willard, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance as read.
We have a first and a second. Alderman Billiard?
Yes.
Alderman King?
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Swatash?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 18, ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances, establishing an ordinance for regulation, establishing fees for commercial construction in the city of Willard, Missouri.
So part of the reason for the codes and for the establishing of commercial ordinances, I want as a developer somebody to be able to come in and come online and not only say, okay, what's the process gonna take for me to buy this piece of property, go to the planning commission, go to the board of aldermen and get ready to go. But I also want them to be able to go in and say, okay, this is what a commercial development's gonna cost. For the most part, we have some stuff that they're not gonna be able to see. You know, some of the impact fees and everything like that, if their service sizes are big enough, are not, you know, it hasn't been calculated yet. But for the most part, they can come in and they can spitball and they can come out with an approximate cost for their project. So they get an approximate cost for their project, they know a timetable, that's gonna speed things along greatly for a commercial development to come in and move things along. So that's what we're proposing with the commercial section, is just to give them a place to eyeball things if they're coming in. It's gonna be, you know, I'm putting a mercantile in, it's gonna be this much per square foot, you know, and they can go through it. And we'll look at adding calculators and different things like that online. It's not very difficult. All this data comes from a table. We can put a spreadsheet online and you can punch in square footage and it can get you an approximate cost. So that's what we're looking to do with the ordinance, just to give those numbers out there.
I like it. If no questions, Janice, can you read?
An ordinance to add a new section titled Commercial Construction to the Willard Code of Ordinances, establishing an ordinance for regulation and establishing fees for commercial construction in the city of Willard, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance as read.
We have a first and a second. Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman King?
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Swatage.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 19, the ordinance to amend section 110 fee schedule for the Willard Code of Ordinances in the city of Willard, Missouri.
So let's talk numbers. This is what we wanted to get into a little bit. So Joyce, I'm going to go through this a little bit, but if you'll pull out your spreadsheets, you have current fees and option A, B, and C. And hopefully you've reviewed these and are thoroughly confused. Because there's a lot of things going on. Okay. So with our current fees, we have a gross area modifier that is determined by the code, and I'm not going to get into it. They just determine it. It's 70. Then we have a permit fee modifier, and that gives us our building permit fee. You go through and times those, and it gives us a building fee. And then we have our standard things. We had a driver process $50, an electrical fee that's 35% of the building fee, and it just goes down from there. We had our standard park fee that was $250. We had our sewer fee to connect to the sewer is $1,100. We had our standard water meter fee, like I talked about, that's $650, which we kept that way. Certificate of occupancy issuance fee came back almost $3,000 for a home. With the codes that are being adopted now, they went away from some of that stuff. They went to a permit fee multiplier, and basically what that is, it's the building department's budget times how much we're trying to recoup in percentage divided by the valuation of all the homes. So basically it's, you know, 230,000. We're proposing to recoup half of that in building fees, divided by 5.5 million, well, 56 million. Well, I need to count zeros. 5.6 million, okay? That's what our valuation was last year. Last year was not a high permit year. You know, I think we had 27 new homes built last year, and we're pushing 200 this year. But that's how that fee is addressed. And if I was to just go by that fee, if I was just to keep that fee as we currently adopted it, not modify it, just my building permit fee would be over $4,000, where my entire permit fee was $3,000. So we did some modifications and everything like that on the the multiplier, because I could present that to you and say, hey, my permit, by adopting the codes, congratulations, the fees just tripled. But I don't think that's how we want to pursue things. So what I did is I divided that by 20. It got us closer to what we currently are. But then I sat back, had some good advice from staff. It's not up to me to say, hey, this is where things should be. It's really up to you. So I want to go through this a little bit because there are some fees on there that we didn't have before. Before we did not have a gas fee. And what those fees are is, those fees are directly paid for inspections on homes. So we were doing inspections on homes that we weren't getting paid to do because there was no fee attached to the permit. So we added a gas fee, we added the technology fee I talked about, we tried to go paperless, we tried to make things available to people online so they don't have to make a drive to the city office to get things done. They can just go online, say, hey, this is what I'm doing, I've submitted that to the building department for review, I can pay my permits online, different things like that, to make things more convenient. We kept the approach fee the same, the water connection fee the same. We decided to put the water capacity fee on the building permit, which is $800. We've said $800 out of $2,000 for a water capacity fee to satisfy that capacity study that was authorized earlier. As I mentioned before, the parks fee came in at $400 instead of $250. We added a police facility fee of $350, and then a treatment fee, and that's in the facility, the capacity fees, and that's basically for our pump stations, our high pressure lines, our pumps, containment basins and stuff like that, just to give Public Works a source of revenue for that. And by doing that, it came out to within, $250. There was a $250 increase by me, but by adjusting that multiplier, But like I said, I came to the conclusion that that's not my job to determine. So going through options A, B, and C, and we can go back. You can just go to the current residential permit, and it has a summary of all what the totals are on the proposals for A, B, and C, and we can go over them if you'd like. I have no issue going point by point if that's the way you'd like to do it. But option A was a $250 increase, which is a pretty minimal increase, and I don't know what, like I said, it's hard to look at the crystal ball and say, hey, it's gonna cover costs for what we're trying to do. Option B, the only thing I did on option B, I believe, was instead of charging 15% for the trades, I charged 25%. They used to be at 35%. We lowered them. So I added that to 25%, and that went up to about $370 more than they currently are. And then option C, I lowered the permit fee multiplier from 20% to 10%, and kept the trades at 25%, and that's almost an $800 increase. So, like I said, I'm willing to take questions, and we can go point by point over anything that's cloudy. I know we're going over things rather quickly. But basically what it is, it's the building permit fees. And the building permit fees don't just apply to the building department, as Carolyn stated in her report. It affects everything. It affects Public Works, water, sewer. It affects every department because they're attached to the building permit. So parks, all these departments are reliant on development to drive in also.
So, devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate, love it.
What do you think is the most fair increase? Not taking anybody telling you this isn't your job, but as it is your job. What do you think is the most fair increase?
Well, let me give you some background. Okay, when I came to Willard and everything like that, I was absolutely flabbergasted by your rates. So I built 5 homes for my family. Had to go through the building process and everything like that. A building permit where I came from was $30,000. Before I could turn a shovel full of dirt, I was paying $30,000.
In
So
relation to the cost of living.
cost of living was high. Cost of living is high. So, like I said, that's not what I envisioned for Willard. Short answer, I would probably go middle ground. I would probably be looking at option B, maybe option C. But I don't have a crystal ball to see how these are gonna pin out, you know? Yeah, that's my best answer. Best to be moderate. If we're behind, we can always do an adjustment.
And there's a fee for every time the inspector goes out. First time, maybe second time, sometimes they even 3 times. Yes?
Yeah, and it depends what inspection also, you know, I mean, if you're doing stuff on, a full inspection will have 2 or 3 inspections, you know. For a rough-in inspection is actually like 6 inspections, where you're looking at 6 different things. So it just depends what you're looking on and the quality of the builder. If the builders get it, you know, things can go well, you know, so.
Well, I would certainly like to go towards being able to hire, you know, at some point, I know we talk about hiring a full-time residential employed, W-2 employed inspector, and I would love to see something geared towards mitigating that cost.
And that's exactly where the cost would have to come from. And I didn't pull any costs for extra employees or anything into the consideration of the formula at all. So this was just strictly where we were and where we're proposing to be. So, yeah, I wish I would have had the foresight to do that.
We still have time.
There is time. There is time. Anything else you're not clear on? We did go over a lot of material really quickly. So, like I said, I'm not opposed to answering questions or trying to unmuddy the water. And just for everybody's information, section 500.110 is the building fees, but it's also all fees. So the spreadsheet that was attached to this shows all fees. And it shows what the fees were and what the fees are proposed and why we're proposing it that way. Just for clarification, like you guys were saying, we're not pulling these numbers out of a hat. We've put some thought into this and you know, we're trying to cover people's time out there, materials and everything like that, trying to justify that rate. So. And if you think I'm not mean enough, you guys can just, you know, say, we're gonna do this. It's gonna calculate something different, so. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word mean, but if I were. There you go. There, I like that better. I like that better. We're not trying to punish anybody.
I don't feel that the option A is enough of an increase myself.
We don't need to decide an option tonight, following the second reading, correct?
This is just the first read. There's plenty of discussion
Yeah, we could go over it and think about it. On the second read, we'll make a choice on what we want.
Yeah, and please, I mean, feel free to contact me either in person or by email if you have questions. We can go over, we can spitball, whatever you guys need to understand this, because the formulas can be complicated, but I mean, the end result is shown in the numbers pretty plainly, so.
Janice, we'll go ahead and have the first read then.
An ordinance to amend section 500.110 fee schedule of the Willard Code of Ordinances in the city of Willard, Missouri.
Make a motion to accept the ordinance as read.
Could we add that we'll be deciding which option later, just so that's clear?
Okay, you just redo your option, or you
Okay,
redo your
make a
motion.
motion to accept the ordinance as read with the option to make the decision on the second reading.
Thank you.
Decide what option on the second reading. All right? What is it?
Perfect. Sure.
You're great. You better second again, Casey. If you're so inclined.
We have a first and a second. Alderman Billiard?
Yes.
Alderman King?
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster?
Yes.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
And Alderman Slaughter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 20, sanitary sewer project status.
Okay, on the 94 lift station, Force Main, Dr. Martin's about 50% completed the planning profile design. This is the Force Main from lift station 94 to the connection with the city of Springfield. With the Meadows connection to the city of Springfield, that project, Dr. Martin's about 95% completed the design of the gravity main from the Meadows Lagoon to the connection with the city of Springfield. They're also working on a couple of issues regarding plan and profile regarding the sewer at the intersection of Farm Road 103 and 106. Complications of buried fiber optics, pole anchors for Liberty Electric, natural drainage way, the best way to get through that intersection. Should see some plans for review next week. That's really the status.
No questions? Comments? All right. Item 21, water tower recoding.
On Tower 3, which is the Meadows, Public Works and I met with Denver Coatings and the Viking Industrial Painting to do a coatings evaluation. At Tower 3, the exterior cannot be recoated. It's been recoated several times in the past, not support additional coats of paint. It will require sandblasting of bare steel, application of primer, and intermediate of final coat. The interior will also need to be sandblasted with bare metal and application of primer and 2 high-build epoxy final coats. There's some additional repairs that have to be made to that tower to be compliant. One is an addition of the painter's hatch, which it does not have. And what this means is, at the top of the bowl, you've got a man hatch. But under OSHA, if you run an air hose down that or an extension cord, you can no longer call that a man ingress and egress way. So we'll have to build a separate hatch for air hoses, et cetera, et cetera. That's an OSHA requirement. There's a lot of repairs to be done in the bowl in the areas of previous leaks that we've been fighting for years and finally cured. There needs to be some remedial action taken there. Repairs also to the fill and discharge pipes that fill the tower and the discharge of water. We've got some extremely corroded pipes that need a little further investigation. And then the interior ladder needs some repairs, and we'll also need to do some repairs to our fall protection apparatus on the ladder that goes up the main riser of the tower. the school, water tower, tower number 2, the exterior can be recoated with an acrylic final coat. And this would be most cost effective considering the cable and antenna arrays mounted to the tower. There's a lot of cell phone crap on top of that tower and cables going up the lights. We were unable to view the interior of the tower from the top hatch due to intense radio frequency emitting from the antenna arrays. Viking had an RF meter with it, but at a certain level, him and JR stopped. We didn't pass through an intense field.
Whatever companies are on that tower, are we getting paid for that?
Yeah, I'm researching all the leases now. Carol and I've been working on the spreadsheets what our revenues are, but I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, intense radio frequency can cause some temporary blackout. At the top of a 100-foot tower, that's not the time you want to pass out. So we've got that issue to address. I'm looking at the leases regarding the safe access for our tower, also looking at the contractual arrangements for the leases, looking at the payment schedules, and we'll have more to say that next meeting. The lease history of telecommunication on our water tower has been, it's kind of convoluted, it's hard to sort out. And it goes back 25, 26 years ago when it all started. With regards to the towers, we will be exploring the possibility of a multi-year maintenance agreement regarding coating, interior painting, and inspection of our towers. And we'll be working on project bid documents and a contract that meets statutory requirements for public works contracts for the state of Missouri. And we'll run on that longer. But one option we're looking at here is to sit everybody down and get a good feel on, do you do these jobs on a one-off basis, or do you enter into a maintenance agreement over a period of time with an outlined schedule, and it streamlines your payments equal to the amount. The leads are for rate study, but you pay a premium because you're using their money up front. So more to be said on that later.
Thank you. All right, item number 22, Mr. Administrator.
Well, this will be a newly added, recurring, regular addition. Place for me to share progress. Former community, I found this very beneficial. It's a good opportunity for us all together, let you know kind of things that are going on. So my intent is to just keep this as a recurring, even if it's just say, hi guys, you know, here I am. This go around, do have a few things. So I almost didn't add it, had some things came up. Okay, let's do it. Firstly, I want to clarify my earlier remarks as far as removal of the discussion/vote. It won't change the first and the second read notations. We need to put that in there for clarity when we do those. So that will remain there. We had some ongoing effort going on as far as tidying the agendas, streamlining the preparation steps, and then of course works to finalize the agenda a little earlier than right at the end of the week. That's still going on. I don't want to keep modifying things after publication and having to send out updates. I think that's a good look. So we'll keep trying to fine tune that. I've also reached out to a provider who we've used before who has a kind of cohesive solution, the cost of which is based on population. So it's, it looks really cool, but it's, for Wichita or Kansas City, it's a lot more expensive than it might be for us. Part of that gives an agenda software. So the videos we're taking now, the documents we put together, it puts the agenda together for you as you go and then connects it to the video. So anybody who's watching from home can And we just watched it today, so it's fresh in mind. It's very cool. It's a lot better than I remember it being. And also, you had to click the documents, open the documents on their computer, go to the bookmarks. You know, they don't care about half the meeting except this one thing. They can click that one thing and go straight to it, listen to it. So it helps with that civic engagement. It also helps people see the most current agenda at all times, and we can build it any time as well. So definitely has some benefits as far as our website goes. Our public online presence is needing a little TLC. So they also include everything in kind of a bundle. You can have a piece of it or the whole thing or some pieces of it. Mike and Tammy and I have been working on storyboarding the website and trying to enhance some of that stuff. My plan is we offer better transparency through our website, but it takes time and effort to get that together, whereas a company like Civic Plus already has the platform. You just got to plug in the stuff. So it's kind of is our time better spent elsewhere, or is it better spent on this? So we're kind of going through those discussions. So that's something I'm working on just to help us there. Community survey. For the community survey live this morning, we've already had, as of when I wrote my notes anyway, we had 15 responses already. So that's great. For me, it's I've used it as an annual feedback tool, and I leave it open for quite a long time, and really I only close it just because at some point you've got to lock it in and say that's enough. Close it up, reopen it, so the same people, if they want to submit new thoughts, new ideas, new feedback, they can now submit a new feedback survey. So this year I'll leave it open through August 31st, just a weekend, so risk of it being shut down at noon or anything like that. They can have all day on the 31st and probably September the 1st to submit some thoughts and some feedback. I found it immensely helpful. It just tells you things that maybe you didn't have a reason to know or haven't had the occasion to have that conversation. And then you realize, there's now good feedback from the community that, hey, maybe we want a splash pad, or maybe they want us to focus on a particular type of housing, or maybe they want to focus on a particular ordinance. So it gives us some feedback that's actionable that we can then consider as a board. It's also a great way to engage what I call the contented masses. They don't usually show up to the meetings. They don't usually bother you guys because they feel like you're busy and life is good, so why worry? So it gives them that outlet to share some of their thoughts. I will say, for anybody listening at home, one person did use the survey as an opportunity to include some hateful language. I would encourage anybody taking the survey, it is a public document, so please don't include anything that you would say to your mother or to your most critical critic, because it will be in the document. Another thing I wanted to add, just getting it out to the community, I plan to have a coffee hour at the Hive on July 2nd from 11 to 2. It's just an opportunity for anybody who's around. Come visit with me, share your issues, talk about issues that matter to you. So that's out there. The Hive has been gracious enough to let me crash their place for a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it. I may not have enough time to talk to everybody if there's a big turnout, or I may just sit there drinking a cup of tea for a little while. I don't know, but do encourage people to come out. If they've got opinions that they'd like to be known, please come. I have spoken with OTO about the Jackson Street overlay project. It sounds like MoDOT is wrapping up with their comments. That will go to our consulting engineer. They'll most likely make adjustments as they need to. I know that's been a question that's been out there where that's at. It looks like from the feedback and the update that I had today, most likely could go to bid mid-July to early August. As far as infrastructure, I guess every contractor is different. I've always heard it's more ideal to lay asphalt in the dead heat of summer than it is when it's brutal cold outside. So that may be something that we have to consider when we do finally settle on a bid and a process. Mobilization is usually not right after you've signed the bid and said, yes, we'll hire you for this project. It could be weeks, months before somebody shows up to do the work. So just something to consider if you get feedback from your constituents, it may be pushed out a little bit just for the sake of getting a good quality project. Sewer, I've run into some sewer challenges. It's not my first rodeo on that. So I reached out to a consultant engineer that I work with back in Kansas. They did come out Friday, kicked the tires, had a wonderful conversation with Public Works and the Water Department, myself. They have done excellent work in the past, so I'm hoping they can maybe put a plan together that we can tackle some of our lift station challenges, maybe unlock some capacity without building any new additional infrastructure to do so. Justin had a good plan that he bounced off the engineer to maybe alleviate some of the issues of regional. This engineer will kind of put some things together, we'll give him some information. He'll be able to then come talk to the board as far as cost and planning and ideas, just to get your feedback and hopefully support, or at least start the ball rolling if we choose to go with a different engineer. Right now, we tasked him with, just based on some basics, what would be the first domino we could knock down that would then allow us to knock down all the rest of the dominoes. Because right now it seems like we're dealing with some challenges when we have heavy rain. We're paying for capacity at Springfield that is just treating stuff that comes out of the sky instead of comes out of the toilet and the bathtub. So it's lost revenue for the city, which then we have to come here with budget amendments because now we've had to send some septic trucks down there 20 odd times and things like that. So that's kind of where we're at. I think the best analogy I can give the board, if you haven't dealt with infrastructure, if you think of it like a car, you go to the dealership, you buy a brand new car, so that brand new car smell, you can drive it for 100,000 miles if you like. You're just changing the oil, changing the tires, life is good. And then eventually it starts to kind of, now you're over 100,000. Now you got a squeak, you know, the bearings are going out, the CV axle got to be replaced, but it's still a good car. You can still make it a little bit more expensive maintenance to keep it on. Now it's hit 300,000 miles. Firstly, great job, you know, you've hit 300,000 miles, but now the squeak is a bump, the wheel is kind of wobbly, the door is not closing properly, and you're now thinking it's probably time for a new car. That's kind of the lifespan of infrastructure. It works the same way. It has a longer lifespan if you take care of it, but you have to think of it in those terms. It is something that's going to wear out. It is something you have to invest in. It is something you have to maintain. And it does get more expensive the older it gets. That being said, there are steps that they can take to kind of prolong the life of infrastructure, but it's a 40-year, 50-year problem that you have to tackle every year to keep it going. You can't just ignore it and hope that, you know, make it another year. Eventually that year is, you're done. So just in a nutshell, that's kind of my analogy. It is something that we will bring up time and time again, I'm sure, in the coming months, coming years potentially, but it will get more expensive the longer we put it off or hope that things will get better, especially with Mike over here. Keep growing things, you know, we're going to eventually have to tackle it one way or another. So just kind of wanted to prime you for that and give you an update that I'm trying to kind of figure that challenge out in the background. So far it's cost us a grand total of nothing. It's good to have friends. They're a small engineering company, but they've got a good reputation. So he did agree to consider taking us on even though it's bulk, just because we have a previous working relationship. But again, we're not locked in anything, nothing's been signed. So if we decide to go with the consulting engineers down the road or a different engineer altogether, we can still explore that. That's my updates.
Thank you. All right, item number 23, new business. Do we have any new business? This probably doesn't go under new business, but just as a clerical kind of request, can we get just a wall mailboxes or something for all the aldermen? So a place where we can go, constituents want to send us a letter, employees want to drop us a note, something that we can go to in here in City Hall and check our mailboxes.
There is a wall of mailboxes, so if the public does want to submit something for you guys, they can just let us know and we'll put it in that box.
Perfect. And is that box just all aldermen or individual aldermen?
Individual, I believe.
Okay, perfect.
I believe there's a sea of them, right?
I remember making the names or you can spell that.
And then as far as these packets go, and I promise you, everyone here is probably more organized than I am, and everybody can just talk to Janice and give their input. I would like to see, before every meeting, can you just get a bunch of 3 reminders for everybody with just an appendix and tabs and put essentially each item in section 1, 2, 3, corresponding tabs so that it will be a lot easier for us whenever we're flipping around from subject to page to whatever, that we don't do like we usually do when we're fumbling through loose pages. It'd be a lot easier if we had a 3 reminder, an appendix. We said, okay, Carolyn says, go to section 3, page 2. We can hit the section 3, page 2. We're all right there. Not letting I can go see. That'd be great. If anybody has any better ideas, I'm sure people that are more organized than me might have a more in-depth plan. But even just something like that would be great. It'd be just easier for us to follow along during the meetings.
I actually do have a request when it comes to the electronic version. If all of your pages can face the same direction, that would be spectacular.
Yes, it would.
It's really hard to,
Yeah, we're working
because
on it.
we all go through it on our devices.
Some of them are a little kind of off on a,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd like to put my agenda in here somewhere.
I don't like that they're grainy, I don't like that they're grainy.
I try to do it this way so I can get it big enough that, when it.
Case in point.
You got yours right
That would
I do
literally.
what you normally do, I put it in here. Yeah, my computer's almost went out the window a couple times due to that.
Luckily, my computer is, it's a gold one, so I can flip it, but.
All right, all that'd be fantastic. All right, item number 24, the unfinished business. And if there's no unfinished business, can we get a motion to adjourn? Yeah, I do.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
We have a first and a second. Alderman Billiard,
Yes.
Alderman King,
Yes.
Alderman Lancaster,
Yes.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
and Alderman Swalhouse. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.